Hey, Tom, I'm an 80-year-old. I am racking my brain to understand this issue, and I'm hoping that you will shed some light on it for me, please. If Trump loses the election, I believe he'll go to the High Court. And if it goes to the High Court, it seems like they would turf it to the House of Representatives, but it's confusing at that point. Can you lay it out for us and help us understand what would happen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Constitution specifies, the 12th Amendment specifically, specifies that if no candidate gets the majority of the certified votes in the nation, electoral college votes, then the election gets thrown to the House of Representatives. It's happened a few times. It happened with the Jefferson election in 1800. It hasn't happened in 100 and some odd years, but it happened in the election of 1876. The Sam Tilden versus what's his name, the guy who actually became president, Rutherford B. Hayes. And, this seems to be the thing that the Republicans are hoping for. You've had the Georgia Elections Board. I'm going to talk about that a little later today. The Georgia Elections Board, or actually in just a couple minutes, just voted 3-2. The three guys that Trump shouted out to from his Georgia rally to allow for postponing certification of the election. But all that does is it just kind of takes Georgia out of the running. Now, if Georgia was essential to a Harris-Walz win, then that becomes problematic, and the scenario you're describing could be very troubling. I'm inclined to believe that the American people, having already seen the Supreme Court steal one election, it's very clear now. We know from the recount down in Florida that Al Gore actually won that state. But the Supreme Court stopped the recount and handed it off to George W. Bush. I don't think people will stand for it. I think Americans are just, over it. We've had two presidents just in this century who lost the election. George Bush lost by 500,000 votes nationwide. Donald Trump lost by 3 million votes nationwide in 2016, and yet both of them ended up in the White House. And both of them put all kinds of right-wing crazies on the Supreme Court. There would only be one right-winger on the Supreme Court right now if those two had never been, ushered into the White House by the Electoral College and by the Supreme Court in the case of George W. Bush. So, this is their strategy, Larry. I don't think it's going to work, and I think that they've done themselves a disservice by telegraphing it in advance. I think the Democrats are going to be ready for it, but we'll have to wait and see. Mark Elias is doing yeoman's work out there. So, is that at all reassuring?
What happens if it does go to the House? What happens
if it goes to the House, then Trump becomes president. Each state gets one vote. There are 26 states controlled by Republicans. There are 2 that are ties, and there's only 23 that are controlled by Democrats. So if it does go to the House, and that's why I said that's what they're counting on, because they know that's how it'll play out. Now, the one thing that could change that is it goes to the House, and that's the House that gets elected this fall. So it's possible that a couple of states might actually lose their Republican majorities, but I think it's unlikely. Larry, I got to run. Thank you for the call.